Yeah, welcome to our presentation. It's basically how to make digital objects more archivable early on in their life cycle. So to give you a short overview, we start with an introduction, talk a little bit about the theoretical background and the method of our paper and the presentation accordingly. We have 2 use cases of each our institution, talk a little bit about the tools involved, and close with the conclusion. So in both our institutions, we have automatic ingest processes installed, but we do have the problem that we encounter special cases that stop our ingest processes. And sometimes or often we have to use a lot of effort generating archivable objects. And in some cases, there are no archivable objects available. And Yvonne will talk about that later on. So when I'm using the word archivability, we defined as an object or a publication conforms to the best practices and preservation standards of the institution, that is, it is ready for archiving. So the aim of our use cases and the paper was that we wanted to decrease the stops in automatic ingest processes via development of cross-departmental processes. And this is our background or the model behind the paper. And you don't have to read everything. So basically in the middle, there are the general object processing steps like creation, acquisition, and so on. And they are related to different departments. So creation can be at the journal publisher, and then in that case, the acquisition department would do the acquisition, and behind that there's a digital preservation department. And our idea was if you increase archivability early on during, for example, the creation, then you decrease the total creation effort a lot for the institution. So it's not about the level, but about the decrease. And if you increase archivability only at the digital preservation department, you have a lot of effort, and the total creation does not decrease that much. So that was the idea. Basically, if you have to contact your data producers years later, you have a lot of creation effort. So our method was we reviewed the literature. You can read it in the paper. And we reviewed also our actual practices at our institutions. And I will start with my institution. So at BMET, we have an editorial office for publication of open access publication at 2 different publication platforms, Publisso and German Medical Science. And so we can influence the creation process. And, but at the moment, our digital preservation department ingests a lot of old publications published years ago. And we noticed that we have these special cases. It takes about 40 minutes on average for each special case, and might be related to non-conformant data structure, invalid files, and so on. So we're working with the editorial offices at the moment in order to decrease these stops and these special cases. For example, via directly publishing with SPDFA, having a consistent data structure as a data structure of a publication that the automatic process expects, and that this is also documented if there's an exception, which also helps the publication platform, for example, in exit scenarios or something like that. They do usually versioning of identifiers, but we emphasize that it's important to have this update information in metadata. And for example, also with XML publications, we also help and advise on what kinds of subject-specific markup languages can be used. Of course, digital preservation, we recommend open languages. And that's it. I give the floor to Yvonne.
Thank you. I will talk about our use case, which is pretty similar. So years ago, the problem is the acquisition team is first. and the digital preservation team is last. Maybe this sounds familiar to you. And we were waiting for collection we already acquired like 5 years ago. And these collections were just sitting there because we will archive them, but only after we host them. So when the material doesn't get hosted for years, it's just sitting there. And as you see on the slide how it started, we acquired some material from Emerald, and we are talking about more than 100,000 PDF files. And then for some years, nothing happened. My boss just told me, should we talk about this? And I told her, yes, we should, because we are not the only ones with this problem. And I was right, because I got some emails from other libraries. I won't say any names. And last winter, we had a kickoff of a SAFE project. So now there are actual people responsible I can really talk to. And we talked and we decided, okay, we have to do something against it. We have to see if the PDF files are okay or okay enough to be archived. And as a matter of fact, they are usually not, or at least not all. So it used to be really bad, like sitting there for a couple of years, but how it is today, it's better, because we acquire the material and then right afterwards, the acquisition team runs some automatic tests. Our IT guy has helped. They have to use a hot folder. It's all really easy. And we have tested some tools. We, for some reason, decided against Jove because that was too much information. And now we went for other tools, you will see on the next slide, just to see if we have to go back to the data producer immediately to ask for other PDF files, or to ask, are we allowed to remove the password protection or anything, so that we don't run into problems later when we actually archive the PDF files. So now it's perfect. We have already tested the PDF files, at least roughly, and then there's a gap between acquisition and archiving. It's not that bad, because we already know, okay, all the PDF files can be open, and they are not, well, you know, too broken to be archived. And now about tools. We have thought about this a lot. They had to be fast and not to tell us too much that we don't understand. And I am working with Jove, I think, 11 years now, and I still don't understand every error message. So, and PDF info just tells us, can it be opened? Okay, this is important, because some PDF files actually can't be opened because there's a chunk missing or something, because something with the upload went wrong. So this is really urgent to go back to the data producer. Is there password protection? There sometimes is. We usually are allowed to remove it, and we have technical workflows for that, so this is solved. And we use EXIF tools for the error messages, because sometimes the PDFs are not really too bad. You can open them, but they are not really fit for digital preservation. Like, yeah, you might have stumbled about that problem too. There are many error messages from EXIF tool. We don't yet understand everything. We document everything. This is what my colleagues are doing, the team acquisition, and then I go back to the bad PDF which have thrown some errors and look into them via hex editor, which of course takes some time. This is usually about the PDF header. Something is wrong with it. I can repair it or I cannot repair it. I'm just testing it. And I do a migration test, because our preservation plan is to migrate every PDF to PDF A to B, and I will see if a big percentage won't work, and if a big percentage won't work, we will try to get better PDFs, which doesn't always work, but at least we try, and at least we know what we're up to when we actually archive this stuff. So, summary. Early detection is really a good idea to decrease effort later and prevent us from later losses, because we don't want to lose anything. We have a better success rate in digital preservation later, and a better success rate in our migration plans later. So early incorporations of best practices is a very good idea. It saves staff time. And we get a better outcome, which is fabulous. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, guys. That was great. It's great to have a little talk about the record's life cycle at iPres, so thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions for Katharina and Yvonne? Do we have any online questions? Because I feel I should go to them first for a change.
We don't yet,
Okay.
so please, if you're online and you want to ask a question, add it to Slido. If there are no questions in the room yet, I'm going to jump in.
Please.
I actually have a few questions because I read your paper this morning. So let me just choose one. You're testing this out and putting this into practice on what seems to be a limited number of file formats.
Yes.
And I think because of where I am now at the Science Museum Group, we don't have a lot of any one type of format. We have a ginormous range of formats, and I'm wondering how this might scale, because this problem is absolutely what I've had in every organisation where I've been working on digital collecting and preservation. And I'm wondering whether it holds up for all formats or whether there might be other things that need to be considered.
So EXIF tool, I was really surprised EXIF tool works so well for PDF. So I have already run some tests with JPEGs and TIFF earlier on. So for these formats, this will work. We wouldn't have to change anything in our hot folders. If we get some other formats, I think we have to do the tool test again to look which tool is suitable. And if there's a really long tail, we have the same problem as always. We have this long tail in Rosetta. And I'm really embarrassed, but there are about 130 formats I have never heard about. And I don't have the time to, well, you know the problem. But of course, this is a little bit scalable as long as there are tools, at least for extracting metadata, because they are really good for error detection. When they can't extract metadata, and then usually something is wrong. But if there are no tools around, I think we are screwed.
That's great, thank you. I have a couple of online questions now. So they're both from Anonymous. The first one is, this is fascinating, thank you for your talk. There is a question. Did you get any resistance from upstream partners in changing their workflows? If so, how did you deal with that? So I assume upstream partners is the content producers, the publishers.
Yeah, for us, the editorial offices, not really, because they were interested in enhancing their own work, I guess, but it has to be, it's not their main work, so it's a bit slower going than it would be if it would be a project that is directly related to digital preservation. So you have to balance it a lot with the normal workflows, but they are interested. Yeah, it just helps to speak with the people and ask what you can do and then decide on a workflow.
Yeah, from reading your paper, it did seem that they had a vested interest in getting their content correct or compliant or at least improved. I do have another question or two, so can we squeeze them in?
At least one anyway. Yeah.
Yep, okay. So this one will ask, it might be a further conversation that is needed. So could you elaborate a bit on the types of problems you encountered with PDF files that can actually be opened but not okay enough to be archived? Is it mainly about PDFA non-compliance?
I was asked via email about this kind of stuff. Right now, I have only documented it internally, but there is an OP-off blog post where I have spoken a little bit about error messages, especially ICC profile errors really prevent migration. It's bad. So we cannot solve this, we cannot migrate this, we will still accept the material and hoping we will have a solution for that. But we don't have yet, but this is like the worst problem for the PDFs that can't be opened, but still too bad to be migrated. I think you have a question there, or two.
Go for it. Okay,
last question.
No, so.
Oh.
The two people are.
Oh, is there, oh, here we
We'll
go.
take them from the...
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know who was first, so we'll just go to the chap in the yellow hoodie.
My name is Daniel from National Library of Norway. I was just wondering, because as far as I understood, you were checking the files after you discovered there was some problem with them during EXIF tool, like during ingest. But have you tried also like generating files, making problem with a file to see if the tools pick them up? And also alternatively to check if you're able to correct the issue if it's created with an error.
I have done this a lot with Jove with 4 different file formats, but I have not yet done that with PDF and EXIF tool. So these are only real life PDFs. None we actually had an iPres paper about exact this question, but with Jove in Kyoto with Mickey Lindner and Kyle Wilson. So no, this is still on the to-do list.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go. I think Arif, you'll be the last one. Go for Arif. Just behind you.
Hi, thanks very much. Arif, Katharina National Library. It's very informative and very interesting presentation. So just a quick question. I don't know if the answer will be quick, but you do a lot of interesting curatorial works, opening up PDFs, changing using hex editor to correct, the PDF headers and so on and so forth. So from a preservation perspective, there's a lot of interesting trail of events that, that kind of take place. Are you recording it in any way? If not, do you plan to? And how do you then envisage storing it as part of your, whether it's part of your AIP or AIP adjacent or something, so that future generation of users or archivists or whoever could understand why you've done certain things and what they're seeing is a result of those actions? Thank you.
That's a Primus question. No, we actually don't really do something with the PDF files in pre-ingest. We ingest them as they are. Except for the password protection removing, but I haven't gotten those files yet. So no, we do that later, and we use Rosetta, and then everything is documented really badly, many metadata, much metadata.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. Can we just say thank you again to Yvonne and Katharina?